Greetings, my name is Monty Martin.
And I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
And we are the Dungeon Dudes. Welcome to our channel where we cover everything D&D, including advice for players and guides for DMs.
We upload new videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
Today, we are looking at our top magic items for Bards in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition.
Bards are an interesting class because they combine skill, cunning, and magic into one package. So when we look at the magic items for them, we want to keep that in mind to influence our decisions for what magic items might best fit a Bard character.
Now, with any Bard, because of their versatility and diversity, your Bard might actually do well from looking at some of the videos that we posted for some other classes as well. So as we go into the specific recommendations for the Bard, I think it's worthwhile to possibly even consider the magic items that we've recommended for Rogues and Rangers, but also the magic items that we recommended for Sorcerers, Warlocks, and Wizards. Because and there's even a case to be made for looking at the ones for fighters as well, because Bards, especially because of all their subclasses that really change the way that they play, it is possible to have a more martially minded Bard or a more spellcasting oriented Bard or one that really focuses on stealth and subterfuge. So considering all of that, our recommendations today are going to be ones that are really, really specific that are great for Bards, but I do think that it is worthwhile considering all the options because you can get pretty creative with your Bard.
So we've each picked one magic item, in some cases a couple more, from each rarity category and a few wild cards in there as well. Also keep in mind that we are trying to steer away from magic items that just give a basic +1 or +2 bonus. We want something a little more interesting and flavorful. In this case, we are trying to pick magic items that focus and hone in on what most Bard players love doing in the game anyways, and what's going to amplify them or inspire them to think about their Bard in new and creative ways. There's a lot to discuss today, so let's get rolling.
So, Kelly, starting off at uncommon magic items, what uncommon magic item would you recommend for Bards?
Well, one thing I love about Bards is not only are they a very charismatic character, but a lot of Bards in my mind are always determining what their fashion and style is going to look like in any situation. One of my favorite magic items to give a Bard player is the Hat of Disguise. This magic hat requires attunement, but it allows you to cast Disguise Self at will. The disguise disappears if you remove the hat. Already, Bards are kind of the jack of all trades when it comes to skills, and a lot of Bards rely on stealth and charisma to get in and out of situations. With the Hat of Disguise, you really get to play into the actor persona of a Bard. You get to really play into the charisma aspects, your persuasion and deception, while being able to put on a hat and become anybody. I think that this is a really fun tactic that opens up a broad range of play styles for a Bard, and I have given out Hats of Disguise in my game, and they have created some of the most memorable character identities that I think we've ever seen in our games of D&D.
Especially when the player does take the actor feat, because the player's then ability to impersonate and infiltrate really is so much fun. And often, and I will say, seeing the Hat of Disguise in our games, the players get themselves into trouble with it just as much as they solve problems with it. And that's kind of what I love about it, is that it really encourages you to change your appearance and explore that infiltration element. And even though Bards do have Disguise Self on their spell list and can cast it, there's something about putting the Hat of Disguise in front of players that makes them think about disguises more. I don't know what it is. It's just the ability to always have the disguise that you need. Even though it is an illusion, it's subject to some limitations, which is great, which is actually perfect considering the item.
I do think that when we talk about why putting the item in front of somebody who already has Disguise Self is important, is Bards have a lot of great spells. And using a spell slot to cast Disguise Self is not always your go-to option. But when you get the opportunity to cast it at will without using a spell slot and can rely on using it all the time, and still rely on your spell slots for the spells that you want to cast, the great bardic spells that are out there, it opens that up to much more versatile gameplay. You don't feel the limitations of it anymore. It kind of blows the idea of disguises wide open for the Bard.
Yeah, now, again, as I said before, it is casting the spell Disguise Self. So, fortunately, this isn't a spell that requires concentration, but you do have to be attuned to the hat itself and wearing it. And so it is an illusion, so it isn't physically shape-shifting. So if this hat is a very wide-brimmed sort of gaudy hat, they might even need to watch out for that, depending on what the disguise looks like. But in any case, I totally agree. It's a lot of fun. For me, though, I took a similar tack, though, and I think that these two magic items actually are a little bit of a deadly combination, so watch out for giving the bard both of these ones. I chose the Ring of Mind Shielding.
Nice. Good choice.
And this magic item, while you wear it, it protects you from having your thoughts read, for people using magic to determine if you are lying, from knowing your alignment. You could also potentially consider the Amulet of Proof Against Detection and Location, which just renders you impervious to divination magic in general, considering how often bards are liars. Yeah. And these items really let you go overboard with it. Now, the Ring of Mind Shielding also has this interesting effect in that you can make the ring invisible, so you can disguise the fact that you're even wearing it. And if you die, your soul gets drawn into it, which is a little bit of a weird effect of the item, but you can choose to exit the ring at any time. But if you're dead and your soul's in the ring, you can telepathically communicate to whoever's in that. So that does kind of create the interesting scenario where, if your bard does bite it on the infiltration mission, someone might be able to find the ring and still get the message out. And I've actually been considered many times of having an adventure hook where the party finds a Ring of Mind Shielding that has a spy's soul in it, and the spy is trying to get the Death Star plans out or something.
I also think that's a great way. This is going a little bit more into plot hooks and storylines that you might explore. But I love the idea that if you are playing a bard and your character dies, and you love that character, but you also had another character that you were like, I think I'm going to bring in a new character, your bard can live on as a sentient magic item. And now if they had a cool plot line that you were really hoping to reveal during the campaign, they can still kind of do that because now they're a ring. So I do think that combining the Hat of Disguise and the Ring of Mind Shielding is quite dangerous because now nobody can tell if they're lying and their disguise is somebody else. You can really pull some Mission Impossible stunts with these magic items.
Absolutely. Now, of course, it is using magic to detect if they're lying, so foes can still discern, with an insight check, potentially.
Maybe.
But if you are disguised magically with the actor feat and proficient in deception and with expertise in deception, and you're dealing with a bard,
and you're an eloquence bard,
good luck with that. Now reality can be whatever you want. I think my only other honorable mention for this tier is if you are on an infiltration mission, it might pay to be armed, so bring a weapon of warning with you. So that way you're not surprised when the guards do catch on and they're thinking of maybe stabbing you in the back, and you've got advantage on initiative, so you can maybe get that invisibility spell or hypnotic pattern off before the bad guys stab you.
I think the Weapon of Warning is just a phenomenal magic item in itself, and it seems at home on a bard. And honestly, combining those three, which are just uncommon magic items, these three uncommon magic items kind of turn your bard into an all-star right out the gate. So you might not want to give them all three.
It's amazing how none of those items actually augment the bard's spellcasting. None of them give you a bonus on your skill checks. None of them really even give you a bonus to attack rolls. You do get the advantage on initiative. But the idea of a bard with all three of those items, especially if they were something like an eloquence bard or even a whispers bard, is scary.
When we move on to rare magic items, I think I'm going to continue the fashion icon persona.
Okay.
And I do want to talk about the Glamored Studded Armor. The Glamored Studded Armor allows you to change the appearance of your armor at will. So even if you're not disguising yourself, if you're invited to a regal dinner where you need to dress nice, but you don't want to look suspecting wearing armor to somewhere, you can change the appearance of the armor time and time again to really make your bard look however you want. You want to be in a nice suit, you want to be in your fancy outfits, you want to be in your pajamas, you can change the armor to suit the needs of the mission you're on at any moment. This kind of pairs with the Hat of Disguise. If you have the Hat of Disguise, you can kind of already change your appearance. But I do like the Glamored Studded Armor. I think it's a nice, fun gift to give to a bard.
I think the key thing with the Glamored Studded Leather Armor is that it doesn't require attunement.
Yeah.
It's one of the few pieces of magical gear that has a cool property that you don't need the attunement for. And because it still does have a +1 to AC over regular studded leather, it's just flat out better than +1 armor in every respect. And so it does give you that little fringe benefit too.
What other rare magic items do we like for the Bard? I know there's a few good ones here.
Yeah, so Tasha's Cauldron of Everything actually included a few new magic items for Bards. And my favorite is the Reveler's Concertina. Now, this magic item does increase your Bard's spell saving throw DC by +2, which on its own is phenomenal. But I also love the fact that it lets you cast Otto's Irresistible Dance once per day using it. And something you might not have noticed is a concertina is an instrument that is similar to an accordion, except that it's usually kind of hexagonal or octagonal shaped and has keys on the ends as opposed to having a keyboard like an accordion does. Although it's a bit anachronistic, the image of a bard with an accordion is hilarious, and the fact that this casts Otto's Irresistible Dance is the icing on the cake.
This is thematic. It is a treat at the table, and like some people, I just think that a bard with an accordion is amazing. I don't know how to put it into words. It's both silly but also wildly appropriate.
Yeah. I could see reflavoring this item to be a different type of musical instrument. Another
Why
one
would
that
you want to?
Why? Yeah. Another one that is similar is also the Rhythm Maker's Drum, which has the similar spell save boosting effect to it, but also gives you 1 extra use of Bardic Inspiration per day. Both of these do require attunement, and I think that for spellcasting focused bards, this is kind of a must-have. You really want that item that's going to boost up your spell saving throw DC, and now that they exist, go for them. And I think in both cases they kind of have a fun thematic effect.
Yeah, you either get your little drummer boy marching or you get the silly accordion player, which both are great.
I would be willing to reflavor either of these.
100%.
Yeah.
Like if I played a bard, I might not want a drum. A drum feels very specific, and like there's a certain image that I need to have with my bard that I might not be in favor of. So if you have a player who's really into playing the lute or a harp or has this image in their head of the type of bard they want to play, by all means you can take either of these instruments, have the same bonuses and options, and just present them as an instrument that speaks to the player who wants them.
So moving up to very rare, I think both of us kind of hit on a similar idea, and we kind of have a 1-2 punch combo for our very rare magic items. Both these ones require attunement, so it's a little bit tricky to fit them all in at the same time, but the image behind it is awesome. What are they, Kelly?
Well, we have the dancing sword and the animated shield. I love this image of if you have a bard who has both of these magic items. Both of these magic items allow you to basically toss the item up into the air and it floats around and does its thing without you needing to handle it. So a bard could pull out a sword and shield, toss them up into the air, they are floating. They pull out their lute and are playing a little song while their sword and shield block and attack the people around them. And I think that's really fun.
The dancing sword also lets you attack as a bonus action with it, which might normally compete with giving it your bardic inspiration. But for bards like the College of Lore Bard that can use their bardic inspiration as a reaction, or for a swords bard, for instance, that can use their bardic inspiration for their own attacks, I think that both of these things are really valuable because you might be freeing up your bonus action in another way and still want to get some damage in there, still contributing. But I also love the mental image of like a bard that has an animated sword and shield and is there like playing their accordion while the sword and shield are fighting for them. There's something that's kind of, I don't know, very bed knobs and broomsticks about that. Yeah.
What an image of like you go into a room, there's the goblin boss and a bunch of goblins. You start playing your accordion, the goblin boss is now dancing in place because of Otto's Irresistible Dance, and your sword and shield are killing all the minions. And you're just there playing the accordion. It's great. These are really bringing a bard to life, I think, and making them feel very musical and magical.
Yeah, I especially like the idea of the dancing sword being an intelligent item and maybe having a personality behind it. I think that would be a cool way to make it way more special for the bard, particularly your bard, of course, is going to name their musical instrument, but they might give their sword a good name. Good opportunity to have your favorite pop song reference in the sword.
My sword's name is Chromatica. Moving on to legendary items, I actually want to add a little twist to the bard here. And I think that one of the things about the bard is a lot of people are like, oh, they have to be a musician, but they don't necessarily have to be a musician. Really, they just excel at expressing some sort of art form. And I think a great image is the bard who is a mystic or a psychic of some sort. And you can really play into that. And I think a great legendary item, there is a very rare version of the crystal ball, but I actually like the legendary version because not only does it allow you to cast scrying, but now when you are using the scrying feature of the crystal ball, you can do things like mind reading, telepathy, or true seeing. And I think this is just a really fun image of your mystic bard pulls out their crystal ball and is standing there spying on their enemies and allowing to kind of become a diviner in a way.
Yes.
But if you take a lot of spells and abilities and kind of drive your bard towards a psychic sort of feel, there's some cool vibes that you can get here of playing a mystic as their profession.
I think you can also channel your inner David Bowie and draw some inspiration from the Goblin King and Labyrinth as well. Yeah, there's just a cool image of like the bard seeing through time and space.
If I had a bard who loved that image of David Bowie from the Labyrinth, I would allow their crystal ball to actually be like two orbs that they...
Yes, that would be so much fun.
That they do like the whole thing with that David Bowie does. I love that.
For me, for legendary items, for some reason, I just love the idea of a bard with a rod of lordly might. This legendary rod has 6 buttons on it that have 6 different functions, all of which that feel just kind of tricksy and quirky and make it an interesting sort of capstone item for a bard to play around with. The first 3 buttons of the Rod of Lordly Might let you transform it into a flame tongue, a +3 battle axe, or a +3 spear. So I think that with any of your more martially minded bards, here's your magic weapon. But the other buttons behind it are just all quirky and fun things. You can transform it with the other buttons into a battering ram, have it point north, turn it into a climbing pole or a ladder. But then it also has powers that when you hit someone with it, you can paralyze or terrify them as well. So it does give your bard a little bit more of a surprise punch. And I kind of like the idea that the rod could be like a conductor's wand or a drumstick or even a flute or a piped instrument. And that instead of being just this magical rod, it's an instrument that transforms into one of these items. Especially kind of feeling that whole idea of like, you look at some of the stuff that Jack Black has done where like the guitars transform into an axe. So I kind of draw on this as inspiration for like, yes, call it the Rod of Lordly Might, but reflavor it into a musical instrument. Let maybe the bard use it for spell casting, and then you turn the knobs or the switches on the instrument, and all of a sudden your axe transforms into an axe.
I think that what's iconic about this item for bards is that it presents this sort of jack-of-all-trades item for the jack-of-all-trades character. And I think that versatility and kind of quirkiness is something that we find in the bard itself. So to have an item that feels that it inspires that sort of gameplay really suits the bard. So we collectively decided on a wildcard choice because this wildcard choice is not only iconic for the bard, it's probably the #1 item that most people will look at for a bard. The item can also be any rarity that you choose and can come in a variety of different looks and flavors.
And this item, of course, is the instrument of the bards. And there are 7 different types, ranging from the uncommon DOS lute all the way up to the Amstrath harp at legendary. Now, all of the instruments of the bard have a few shared properties to them. They all require attunement, and the big thing that all of them do is that when you cast a spell using the instrument of the bard that charms the targets have disadvantage on their saving throw. So your bard, when casting spells like Hypnotic Pattern or Dominate Person, is going to be especially potent, causing disadvantage on saving throws against these spells. In addition, all of the instruments of the bards can cast spells. All of them have fly, invisibility, levitate, and protection from evil and good, and you can cast each of these spells using the instrument of the bard once per day. But then depending on the exact type of the instrument, it has additional spells, each of which you can cast once per day. So it's a kind of a weird riff, pardon the pun, on a staff, in that unlike having charges, it's just you can use each spell once.
One thing I love about these items is that there are several spells presented here that are not on the Bard's spell list, so you can actually add some really cool options to your Bard.
Apologies in advance, we're probably going to butcher the pronunciations on these items. They're really arcane.
I'm going to try to say this one, but one of my favorites is the Fokluken Bandor, which allows you to cast Entangle and Shillelagh, which I think are both really great druid spells, but now you can put them onto your bard. One of the other things I love about this item is each one is presented as a different instrument, but I could see reflavoring it so that near the beginning of your campaign, you present the bard with the uncommon version of this item. And whatever magic item it is that your bard loves, they get that. And throughout the campaign, the item powers up. It gains more powers and different spells and changes as they progress as a player. So you can kind of keep this iconic instrument with them. Maybe for me, when I create a bard, sometimes I create an instrument that is their beloved instrument, that is theirs, that they are very dear to. If that's the case, rather than being like, oh, forget about your instrument that you love, here's a new one every few levels, have that instrument become magical and gain powers. And I think that's really cool.
I think the biggest thing with the instrument of the bard is like even the Alum Harp, which is the legendary one, it does give you things like Firestorm and Control Weather, which are pretty high level spells to put on the bard. But you can really easily see how easy it is to homebrew one of these ones, because basically all the uncommon ones have first or second level spells. Some of them have certain third level spells. The rare ones usually have third and fourth level spells. The very rare ones usually have fifth and sixth level spells, and the legendary ones have seventh and eighth, and none of them have a ninth level spell though. So if you want to homebrew these ones to give your bard something special, you could very easily do this by simply choosing 3 spells of an appropriate level within the rarity bracket. So I think that this is a true wild card in this respect, that you can kind of take this as a template, but you don't really have to be bound by what's here, because it is so easy to just brew up your own thing.
So this has been a look at our favorite bard magic items in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Tell us about some of the great magic items that you've had on your bards in the comments below.
The videos that we create on our channel are made possible thanks to the incredible generosity of our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the work that we do here on YouTube, please consider supporting our channel by following the links in the description below.
And don't forget to check out our live play Shadows of Drakkenheim, which airs Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern on Twitch. You can find all the previous episodes right up over here.
And for you more creative-minded players, we've got plenty more videos on fun magic items in D&D 5e right up over here.
Please subscribe to our channel so that you never miss an episode.
Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time
in the dungeon.